You ever open your bank app, stare at your balance, and think, I did everything I was supposed to do. Why does this still feel so fragile? Like you cut back on lattes, you didn't buy the stupid thing, you invested in the S&P, and yet one random expense shows up and your entire month is basically cooked. Here's the thing. Most people think the path to financial security is exciting. They think it's about the next Tesla, the next crypto, the next AI thing with a logo that looks like it was designed by a startup bro who drinks mushroom coffee. But look, if you actually study how boring, durable wealth is built, it's not exciting, it's not sexy, it's not even interesting. And that's the point, because the businesses that quietly print money over decades usually make you yawn. And today, I want to show you 6 of them, because these are boring businesses with unfair long-term advantages. And once you see why they work, it kind of messes with how you think about money forever. My name's Sam, and I spend way too much time thinking about how money actually compounds in the real world. If you're someone who feels like you're doing the right things financially, but still worries that one mistake could knock everything over, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Alright, let's get into it. But first, let me challenge a common assumption. Most people assume that high returns require high excitement, that if something is boring, it must be low growth, and if something is popular, it must be a good investment. That assumption is backwards because popularity attracts competition. Competition kills margins, and thin margins destroy long-term wealth. What you want, whether you're investing, buying a business, or just trying to think smarter about money, are unfair advantages. Stuff that locks customers in, stuff people don't want to switch, stuff that quietly raises prices while nobody notices. And the most reliable place to find that? Boring businesses. Let me show you what I mean. The first one is self-storage facilities. You know this business. You've driven past it 1,000 times. Beige building, big roll-up doors, a name like Extra Space something something, and your brain immediately goes, that looks depressing. But look, this is where it gets really interesting. Self-storage works because it's built on one of the most predictable human behaviors there is. We accumulate stuff. People move into apartments that are too small. They inherit furniture they don't want to throw away. They get divorced, they downsize, they start businesses out of their garage, they procrastinate emotional decisions, and then they run out of space, so they rent a storage unit. And here's what most people don't realize. Once someone puts their stuff into storage, they almost never move it. Industry data shows the average self-storage customer stays for over 13 months, and a massive chunk stays for years. Not because they love it, but because the psychological cost of moving is higher than the monthly fee. If it costs you $120 a month, but moving your stuff would take a weekend, a truck, and emotional energy you don't have, you just keep paying. That's sticky revenue. From a business perspective, this is insane. Low staffing, sometimes 1 or 2 employees per facility, no inventory risk, no fashion cycles, no technological disruption risk, and the demand, shockingly recession resistant. During downturns, storage demand often goes up. People downsize homes, businesses cut office space, life gets messy. Now let's talk numbers. A typical 10 by 10 storage unit might rent for $140 a month in a decent metro area. That's $1,680 a year. Multiply that by a few hundred units in one location, and here's the kicker. Operating margins in stabilized self-storage facilities can exceed 60%. 60. That's not a typo. And because storage facilities are zoned, regulated, and capital intensive to build, supply doesn't flood the market easily, which gives existing owners pricing power. They raise rents 5%, 8%, sometimes more, and most customers don't even blink. This business is boring, it's ugly, it's emotionally neutral, and that's exactly why it works. The second business is commercial laundry services. Not laundromats, that's a different thing. I'm talking about the companies that wash linens for hotels, hospitals, nursing homes, and restaurants. Sheets, towels, scrubs, tablecloths, stuff nobody ever thinks about until it's missing. Look, hotels must have clean sheets. Hospitals must have sanitized linens. Restaurants must have clean towels. There is no "we'll skip laundry this month" option, which means demand is built in. And here's what most people don't realize. These businesses operate on long-term contracts, recurring revenue, predictable cash flow, massive switching costs. If you're a 300-room hotel, switching laundry providers isn't just about price. It's logistics, timing, quality control, compliance, training. So once you're locked in, you stay. Financially, this is beautiful. The machines are expensive upfront, yes, but once they're installed and paid for, they run for years. Labor is structured and repeatable. Processes are standardized. Costs are predictable. Margins in well-run commercial laundry businesses often sit in the 20 to 35% range, which doesn't sound flashy until you realize the cash flow is incredibly stable, and stability is what compounds. Let me give you a quick math example. Let's say a mid-sized laundry operation generates $5 million in annual revenue at a 25% operating margin. That's $1.25 million in operating profit. Now imagine that business grows revenue at just 4% per year. Not impressive, just steady. Over 20 years, that same business can generate tens of millions in cumulative cash flow. No viral growth, no hype, just quiet consistency. And psychologically, this matters because boring businesses reduce decision fatigue. They reduce stress. They don't rely on timing, they just work. The third business is trash and waste management. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody needs it. This is one of the most misunderstood industries in terms of economic power. Because on the surface, it looks simple. Truck, bins, landfill. But underneath, this business is a fortress. Municipal waste contracts often last 7 to 10 years. Commercial contracts renew automatically. Switching providers is painful and political, and most people don't realize there are massive regulatory barriers to entry. You can't just start a trash company tomorrow. You need permits, routes, transfer stations, landfill access. In many regions, there are effectively local monopolies or duopolies, which means pricing power. Waste management companies raise prices almost every year, and customers pay because what's the alternative? Let your trash pile up? From a numbers perspective, this is wild. Large waste operators routinely produce billions in free cash flow. Even smaller regional players can operate with strong margins and very low churn. And here's the psychological angle most people miss. Trash is invisible when it works, which means customers don't think about it, which means they don't shop around, which means they don't leave. That invisibility is an asset. And if you zoom out, you start to see the pattern forming. The best boring businesses solve unavoidable problems, lock customers in, raise prices quietly, require effort to replace. They don't need to convince people. They don't need branding genius. They just exist and collect. All right, let's keep going because once you really internalize what makes these businesses work, you start seeing unfair advantages everywhere. And honestly, it makes a lot of flashy financial advice feel kind of, embarrassing. The fourth boring business with an unfair long-term advantage is plumbing and drain services. And I know your immediate reaction is probably, Sam, come on, plumbing? Yes, plumbing. Because pipes break at the worst possible moments. Not when it's convenient, not when you've budgeted for it at 2 a.m. on a holiday, when you have guests over, when sewage is literally coming back up. This is not a shop around and compare Yelp reviews situation. This is an emergency. And emergency demand is a cheat code. Here's what most people don't realize. Plumbing has pricing power baked into the business model. If your kitchen sink is overflowing, you're not negotiating, you're not waiting 2 weeks, you're saying just fix it. Now layer on another factor most people miss, skilled labor shortages. According to US labor data, the average age of a licensed plumber is over 40 years old, and fewer young workers are entering the trades. That means supply is constrained while demand stays constant or increases as infrastructure ages. That imbalance matters because when supply is limited and demand is urgent, prices go up, and plumbing businesses know this. A single emergency call can easily run $300, $500, $1,000, or even more depending on the issue. Margins on service work can exceed 30, 40% in well-run operations. But the real advantage isn't just the emergency call, it's the repeat behavior.
Once a homeowner finds a plumber who shows up on time, doesn't destroy their house, and fixes the problem, they save that number forever. They don't switch, they don't price shop next time, they just call the same person. Psychologically, plumbing is built on trust under stress, and trust compounds.
Now imagine scaling that. Multiple trucks, service agreements, commercial accounts, preventative maintenance contracts. Suddenly, you've turned chaos into predictable cash flow. Unsexy, unavoidable, unfair. The fifth business is parking lots and striping services. This one is so boring it almost feels like a joke. Owning or maintaining parking spaces is about as thrilling as watching paint dry, which is ironic because striping literally is watching paint dry. But here's the thing. Every apartment complex needs parking. Every shopping center needs parking. Every hospital, office building, warehouse, stadium needs parking. And those lines, they fade constantly, which means the work never ends. This is recurring maintenance disguised as a one-time task. Now let's talk economics. Striping businesses have low startup costs, simple equipment, minimal inventory, high margins on labor. A typical parking lot striping job might cost a property owner $3,000 to $10,000 depending on size, and that same lot will need repainting every 18 to 24 months. Property managers don't want to think about this. They just want it handled. So once you're in, you stay in. And here's the interesting psychological piece. Parking is invisible until it's broken. No lines, chaos, confusion, liability issues. So property owners don't experiment. They don't try the cheapest option every time. They go with the person who already knows the layout and shows up without drama. Now take it one level up. Owning parking assets, not just striping, is even more boring. Surface lots in dense areas often generate steady cash flow with minimal overhead. Expenses are low, demand is stable, and pricing power increases as cities get denser. Again, nothing exciting, but durable, and durable wins. The sixth business is insurance brokerage, especially niche commercial insurance. This might be the most boring one on the list. Forms, renewals, compliance, emails no one reads, but from a business standpoint, this is ridiculous in the best way. Insurance brokerages don't take underwriting risk. They earn commissions, and once a client is onboarded, they rarely leave. Why? Because switching insurance brokers is painful. You have to re-explain your business, resubmit documents, re-evaluate coverage, risk screwing something up. So people don't do it. Commercial clients, especially in regulated or niche industries, value continuity more than saving a few percentage points. And here's the number that should make you pause. Retention rates in niche commercial insurance brokerages often exceed 90% annually. That means the same clients renew year after year. Now let's do some simple math. Imagine a brokerage that earns $5,000 per client per year. With 500 clients, that's $2.5 million in annual revenue. If retention is 92%, you only lose 40 clients a year. But if you add 60 new ones, the business grows without doing anything flashy. No viral marketing, no massive ad spend, just slow accumulation. And over time, this creates something incredibly valuable, a book of business, which can be sold.
Many insurance brokerages trade at 24x annual revenue or more, depending on quality. So you're not just earning income, you're building an asset. Boring on the surface, powerful underneath. Now, let's zoom out, because the real lesson here isn't about self-storage or plumbing or trash, it's about how real wealth actually compounds. Most people chase upside, they chase excitement, they chase stories. But wealth is built by minimizing downside, by choosing systems that survive boredom, by aligning with human behavior instead of fighting it. Here's what most people don't realize. Financial stress doesn't come from low income alone. It comes from fragile income, income that depends on constant attention, perfect timing, emotional energy, external hype. Boring businesses remove fragility. They create cash flow you can rely on, cash flow you can reinvest, cash flow that lets you sleep. And that changes how you think. When money feels stable, you make better decisions. You take smarter risks. You stop panicking. That psychological shift is everything. So, what can you actually do with this? Here are a few actionable takeaways. First, if you're investing, start asking a different question. Not, is this exciting, but would customers still pay for this if they forgot it existed? The best businesses are forgotten until they're needed. Second, if you're thinking about starting a business, look where people don't brag. Look where problems are unglamorous. Look where switching costs are high. Look where demand is boring but permanent. Third, if you're choosing a career path, don't underestimate boring skills. Trades, operations, compliance, infrastructure, these skills age well. They become more valuable over time, not less. And finally, give yourself permission to stop chasing shiny objects. You don't need to impress strangers on the internet. You need a financial system that works when you're tired, when life gets messy, when things go wrong, because they will. Boring businesses don't promise overnight success. They promise something better, longevity. And if you can build something that lasts, whether that's a business, an investment strategy, or a career, you're already ahead of most people. If this video helped you see money differently, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this was worth your time. And if you want more deep dives into how real-world wealth actually gets built, subscribe to USD FinPath. Because boring isn't a weakness, it's an advantage. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.